I was staying in Geneva with two great friends of mine, Lorraine and Claude, and I was going to be taking a flight from Geneva to Warsaw to play with a great friend of mine, a drummer called Michał Miśkiewicz. Michał was the drummer with the Tomasz Stańko Quartet. He wasn't very well known then, but brilliant drummer. And we were going to be playing with a chap called, a tenor saxophonist called Tomasz Szukalski. Tomasz Szukalski played on Tomasz Stańko's first solo album with Edward Vesala. And on my album, Tempest Eclipse, I played with several alumni from Vesala's band, including Mr. Mark Nauseef, who played with Thin Lizzy, played with the Velvet Underground, and Philip Lynott. But so we basically were going to be playing on the periphery of the centre of Warsaw in a club, restaurant, bar kind of thing, and basically 2 sets a night, and so we kind of had to get together. So I kind of went straight from the airport to the venue, met Michał, and then Thomas showed up on his Honda 50, and we basically our rehearsal was the first gig, basically. So a little matinee concert, and then we played a couple of concerts, which were fantastic. We even had Slavik, the bass player from the Tomasz Stańko Quartet, come down and play a set. Really good, really cool. We had a great time, great music, and the next day, after I completed the engagement, I was actually going back to Geneva. But before I went back, I actually went to meet Tomasz Stańko. So I was a great friend with Tomasz Stańko. We were pals, we were buddies, and I visited him in his flat in the centre of Warsaw. So I kind of met him for a cup of tea, and he made me a sandwich and stuff. We had a great chat, and he wanted to hear how the album Levitation was progressing and stuff. And the irony is, only a few short years later, Levitation would receive a joint review with his album Lontano in All About Jazz magazine in New York, the actual printed edition. So he had a big release with Lontano, and our album was released right next to his, and together actually, and we both got 4 stars, which was incredible. But we had a great chat. He's a great guy, and he wanted to know how Levitation was coming along and all that. So I kind of filled him in and gave him the details, and we talked a little bit about how I was doing with Paul Bley and all that, and he was really chuffed with that. It was quite amazing. And so after that, basically, I went back, packed, got a taxi to the airport, and basically flew from Warsaw to Geneva. And from Geneva, I got a train to Paris and Gare du Nord, and from there, I had to get a taxi all the way across town to the other side of Paris, and stayed in a hotel there. Actually, I met Jeff Williams and stayed in the hotel. And then the next day, I had to take a flight to Madrid. From Madrid, I had to take another flight to Cadiz in the very far south of Spain. And there, I was playing in a concert with Paul Bley. And this was, one of the last concerts that the Paul Bley Trio would be playing. It was like the third last concert that we were going to be playing, and the second last concert where Paul Bley played the piano. But I always had great time for Tomasz Stańko. I loved his playing, especially the early stuff. And an amazing thing, when I went back to Poland again later on, and I did an interview with Radio Krakow, which is like the big, kind of national radio in Poland. And basically, the chap who was interviewing me said, you know, he'd given up on Tomasz Stańko. Like, it was just kind of the same old. But when he heard my album, Levitation, it just reinvented and resuscitated Tomasz Stańko for him. And he started loving him again. And he said the catalyst for that was my album, Levitation. Thank you very, very much.